Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started then? Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Armando Ortega and I'm the Director of Product Marketing at Replicon. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us here today. We're very excited to present this webinar to you entitled Introducing Gen 3, a Platform for Success. And today I'm joined by my colleague Scott Bales, who is the Director of Solutions Engineering. Now, in today's webinar, we're going to be showcasing our Gen 3 product, which is our latest Replicon platform, and we're very excited to have recently launched this product. And we're also very excited of all the new capabilities that we think you're going to find very exciting, that will make your life easier, as well as help your organization be more productive and deliver more value. Throughout most of the webinar, Scott will spend the majority of his time delivering a demonstration of the product so you get a good sense. But before that, I'm going to provide a very brief overview of Replicon and some of the key capabilities in Gen 3. Now, however, before we get started on that, I do want to spend just a few minutes to go over a few housekeeping items and let you know how you can participate in today's webinar. So throughout the webinar, you will be kept on mute during this presentation, but you can submit your questions anytime throughout the presentation by using the Q&A text box. And what we'll do is we'll answer all your questions at the end. This Q&A box should be located at the right-hand panel of the screen, and that's where you can go ahead and submit your questions. And there's also a chat panel there that you can use in case you have any questions that you want to submit to the moderator because you're having trouble with the WebEx. So you can feel free to do that as well. So without further ado, why don't we go ahead and get started with our program today. So I know everyone here who's joined us is pretty much a customer of Replicon and you're familiar with our company, but I thought it would still be good to just go through a couple of slides to again let people know a little bit more about us, especially if you haven't spoken with somebody at Replicon in a while, and we've evolved a lot as far as our capabilities and what we've done. So we are the leader in cloud time tracking applications, and our solutions are used by millions around the world, really globally, to manage all sorts of time tracking needs with regards to workforce attendance, managing their projects and programs, running professional services organizations, as well as shared services resources. And just to remind you that as a customer, you are in very good company. We have customers of all sizes and of all geographies, some of the most trusted names who depend on us for their business needs. Companies like Facebook, Xerox, Credit Suisse, Moody's, these are all part of our customer family. And all of these customers are using our solution because they're getting real tangible benefits by using our Replicon product. And well, there are many, they kind of fall under these three categories. The first is really giving them better insight into how people are spending their time and their hours. Human capital represents about 70% of many companies' expenses. That tends to be about the average. And having an insight into how people are spending their time, what projects they're working on, all of that information helps really take it beyond just time tracking, but understand how the workforce is performing and how you can make improvements in your business. The other element is the lowering of compliance risk, whether it be compliance for HR regulations, FLSA, or it's DCA compliance for project-based business. Our solutions are helping all of these customers help meet those compliance and have the information they need to defend their audits. And then the third one is really just around optimizing the processes. So many of our customers, like yourselves, have gone from a manual process to an automation. So you're seeing improvements in how you can do more things more quickly and faster with fewer resources. So you can focus on things that are more important for your business. And we deliver these capabilities with what we consider are four really unique differentiators versus other solutions out there. So as a cloud technology, we bring the benefit and value of the cloud, the ability to access that anywhere, anytime. We are one platform. So our time tracking needs provide the ability to track time for many different use cases, from managing professional services to tracking capital expenses, and our solution can be easily turned on and used across other parts of an organization. Our usability is something that we put a lot of emphasis on to make sure that the tool is easy to use so that more people are going in, adopting it, and capturing their time and get that done and move on with their work. And then our no-hassle philosophy speaks to providing good, strong customer support 24/7 around the world, and making it easy for customers to speak with us, to engage with us, and to help address their concerns and their problems. So as I said, we're going to be focusing our time today on introducing Gen 3 to you. And so what exactly is Gen 3? Well, as I mentioned, it is the next version of our platform, which we're very excited about, in which we're really going beyond just simple time tracking, which is what many of our customers really thought of us back then, but adding a lot more capabilities and a lot new enhancements, which really fall under kind of these 4 general areas. And I'll briefly go through these and maybe give you a few examples of some of the key ones before I hand it over to Scott here to do the demo. So the first is on the usability. We've really taken that a lot to the next level, we feel, and you'll see this when you see the product and Scott demos it. But we've really cleaned up the UI. It looks a lot cleaner and easier to read. We've introduced role-based a role-based approach where we got, whether you're an end user or a manager, what you see and what's available to you is a lot easier to get to. You'll notice that the user interface is a lot more dynamic and it's more responsive. You'll be able to do more things with fewer clicks and just be overall more productive. But you'll be able to just see that right off. The other key area is data-fueled decision-making, which really talks to the fact that we've added a lot of new analytics capabilities, better charts, and really our philosophy around this has been that data should be brought to you and delivered into the process that you're engaged in, rather than you having to go to a separate place and run reports to get the data, which we still offer reports, but more and more we want to bring the information and the insights into you as you're going into your daily work. The third is enhanced project execution. For customers that are using our solution to manage and keep track of time in project-related environments, we've added a lot of new enhancements to help do that better. Things like integrated resource management, stronger ability to manage clients, the ability to manage projects by programs or by practices, and we'll talk a lot more about those. And then finally, the fourth key area is on the payroll side. So really making it easier and faster to go from capturing your time to your payroll run. So at every step along the way, whether you're an end user, a supervisor, or even a payroll manager, we've made that process faster and easier. And here are just a few key enhancements that I think people will really be excited to learn about. Let me walk through a few of these. The first is resource management. So we've added an integrated resource management capability where our customers will now have global visibility into all of their resources so that they can quickly find and assign the right people based on skill sets, based on availability or other criteria. This is great for project managers. It's great for resource managers. Individuals can be allocated across many different projects. We'll also support placeholder support, which will enable you to support people to add a placeholder on a resource that you haven't been able to find, where you don't know who the individual is, but you want to take account of that role and that allocation for forecasting purposes. So we think this will go a long way to helping companies better manage their projects, be more productive, and also really optimize the way that people are being utilized in the organization and raise that utilization level. The other key area is client management support. So we've had the notion of a client, but now we've really added a lot more capability to that, with the ability to have a consolidated view of all the projects that are going on for a specific client, having better visibility into actual client profitability so you can manage your most profitable clients and deal with those that aren't so profitable if you're working in a professional services type of engagement. Another is the ability to manage practices and programs. So this entails being able to roll up similar projects into a practice or program. Practice is a terminology used typically for professional services organization. So what this gives you is rolled up visibility into the performance of these and helps your organization get better insights into that. So if you're a professional services organization, you might operate using different practices. You want to know how an ERP implementation practice is doing versus another type of practice. Or if you're tracking projects internally, you might have umbrella initiatives that you're running that involve multiple sub-projects, and you want to have high-level visibility into how you're going and performing against those versus a budget. I mentioned analytics and our new philosophy in analytics and having data served up to you. So you'll see screens like this one, a totally new charts and graphs that give you a snapshot view into how your projects are performing. These are very dynamic. The screenshot actually doesn't do it justice. You'll see it a lot. You'll see how Scott interacts with this in the product. And also wanted to call your attention to the little area in red, which shows a few key metrics about this project at a glance. So what are the total hours? What are the billings? You'll see stuff like that throughout the project, where you don't have to go to a separate place to run a report. All this information is being served up to you as you're navigating through the project and through the system, whether it be HR or project-related stuff. And then finally, before I hand it over to Scott here, is a section devoted exclusively to the payroll manager to give that individual and that function really global visibility into what all of the different items and tasks are going on in the organization. So whether they be timesheets, global ability to approve, reject, reopen timesheets, manage time off, approve expenses, things of that nature. So this is like a super area for payroll managers to ensure everything is in line and ready to go, so that they can go ahead and run with that payroll cycle. All right. So after this quick overview, the last thing I wanted to highlight is that we've also taken a much more solution-centric approach in how we deliver our solutions, so that we can really build out capabilities in these 4 key areas. And these are professional services management organizations that are professional services organizations that provide services, building out capabilities to better serve those requirements. Project and program management are for organizations that are keeping track of project-related time, but for internal purposes, for productivity, or maybe because they're managing capital expenses, building out that solution area. Shared services management is for large organizations that have centralized service centers, being able to help them optimize how they run those centers. And then time and attendance speaks to our capabilities to help manage time tracking for payroll and manage things such as overtime and compliance regulations. So with that, what I'm going to do is hand it over here to Scott and have him walk you through our product. So Scott, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Armando, and thank you everybody for joining us today. Before we jump into the product, I just want to point out a couple of things. Obviously, most of you on this call are familiar with Replicon, familiar with the tool, and what we're about to show you today, although a drastically new interface and a new paradigm when it comes to interacting with the Replicon solution, it is an evolution. The tool that you're using today and the business problems that you're solving today with the Replicon product is still going to be supported in this new interface. We're going to do it much more efficiently, if we've done our job right, much more quickly. And let's take a look at how the platform's going to do that for you now. So I'm going to share my screen out, and Armando, I'll just get you to validate that that's being displayed remotely, and assume that everybody's seeing it.
Yes, looks good.
Perfect. Thanks, Armando. So what I've done here, a couple of housekeeping tips on my side, is I've turned on everything that's possible from a Replicon perspective so that we can show you all of the new features. We've got a mix of customers in the call today. We've got customers that are maybe only tracking time off, customers that are only tracking projects, and then we've got customers that are familiar with our previous resourcing tool as well. So we've turned on everything so that we can touch on the scope of a new functionality. But I would be happy to discuss specific points, and your reps will be happy to discuss specific points as far as what product offerings going forward contain the features that we're going to see today. So as we get started, obviously you're seeing a very different product than the one you're currently running today. We've lost the left-hand navigation completely. We've moved to a 2-tiered top-level navigation structure, and that navigation structure is now not governed by types of objects or types of data like it was previously with timesheet, expense, etc. Now what we're seeing is functional navigation. So all that means is putting functions together based on your role within the organization. So my Replicon This tab, again, we're still permission based. This tab is going to show me everything I need to do as an end user, my timesheet, my time off, and my expenses. Okay, and we're putting that all together for employees. When they log in, they have everything at hand that they need to access. Now the timesheet, although it looks the same from a row and column perspective, obviously time capture is going to be facilitated in this format. However, what you need to understand is that everything underneath this timesheet has been rewritten. Task selection is now going to consist of a drill down where I can go through client, project, and task to find the item I'm supposed to be entering time towards. I can also just start typing. This feature alone is setting us apart in the market today. No other timesheet products are going to be able to allow you to select and find tasks that quickly and easily from an end user's perspective. Okay. The timesheet changes that we've made from an interface perspective also allow for auto save. So as my timesheet changes, it's now auto saving and pushing that information back to the server at a specific time. We can always override that if required, but the system is going to auto save. Number one requested feature over the last 10 years is that the timesheet auto save, and they finally implemented it. The time off tab from an end user perspective, again, presents a completely redesigned calendar. Those of you that are familiar with our time off are familiar with our calendar, but we've redone it from the ground up. Same interaction capabilities where I click and drag across certain days to book time off. We've added an infographic here showing you how many days you've taken over the last 12 months, so you can make a determination about whether or not you want to book this time off. Now, one of the biggest benefits that we've added to the time off section is instant access to time off balances, and we can see that up at the top. I can see from a vacation perspective how many days I have available today. Keep in mind that balance is going to take into effect any future time off. If I want to drill down and look at all my balances as an end user, I can do that. Again, it's from here. I don't need to go to reporting to do that. I can see my balances. I can see my vacation and go, something's not right there. Drill down again. You're going to hear the word drill down a lot. We're going to let users drill down and PMs drill down into the data they need. I can drill down and see everything that makes up my vacation balance and understand what's driving that value. This is going to save several calls to HR, several calls to supervisors, asking them what their balance is, and then telling HR people that their balances are wrong because it's all documented there. Okay. Expenses still exists within the system, and all the capabilities are there. We've added some billing capabilities around expenses, and I'll show you that in a little bit. But the expenses still exist in the same way that they exist in the current on-premise product. Now that is where an end user is going to spend their time, the My Replicon tab, and they're going to submit their time and their expenses and their time off the same way they always have through an approval process that's still supported in the product today. However, now approvers have a team tab. The team tab is going to give them access to all their approvals in one place. Here I've got some type of approval for every type of object. It's going to give me access to all of those approvals in one tab, and beside it, I have access to all of the details around those, even if they're unsubmitted. So the nice thing about this interface is, as an approver, as a supervisor, at any point in time I can see all my employees' timesheets, historically and current. I can also see all of their time off requests, looking at my team's balances as well, and understanding what they're going to have available as of a given date. Now, the one last thing I want to point out here on the Approvals tab, and we're going to see this throughout the application, is this configuration gear that sits above the table. In our current on-premise offering, we implemented this a little bit, and you'll see it has much more, there's much more scope within our current tool. But the configuration gear brings up all the valid columns that relate to the table that you're looking at and allow you to select the columns that make sense to you as an approver. So you can see the columns that are going to help you make these approvals more quickly. Those changes you make apply to you and your login. So other users can log in and do the same. It does not affect them from a login perspective. Your changes are your own, so the interface becomes your own, and it makes it easy for you. It makes it easy for Armando to do what he needs to do, and it's all user-based. Now the next tab is the client dashboard that Armando alluded to. The client within previous products was really just an attribute, a way of filtering out projects. But what we've really done is created a space of its own where client managers can go. The clients menu at the top gives me access to a listing of all my clients, and there's that configuration item again that lets me change the interface and show the columns that make sense to me. I can also take this data and adjust what I'm looking at. So I can look at this year versus last year, this week versus last week from a client perspective. Again, we're not going to reports to do that. It's all data driven through the interface where you're at when you need it. So if I go in to look at one of my clients, for example, what I'm going to be presented with is a graphical representation. You're going to see this at other points in the product, so I'll take some time to explain it now. What this graphical representation is trending analysis. So I can see in this case week over week, or choose to look at this in different increments month over month, my estimated versus actual hours, costs, even billing amounts.
Hey Scott, you're breaking up a little bit. I don't know if you're doing something different.
Okay. I'm not. Is it still breaking up? No?
It's a little better. It might also just be my phone, so why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Not a problem. If it continues, Armando, please let me know, and I'll drop and dial into the call again. The graphic that we're looking at here could potentially show us billing versus costs, actuals versus estimated amounts, and that would show us both profitability as well as forecasted billing. Now, from the Projects tab, what we're also going to be able to see is all the projects that correspond to this client. So if I needed to drill down into a specific project that I was seeing values on that didn't make sense from a cost or billing perspective, I could do that as well, all through the Clients tab. Okay, not having to go to Projects, not having to go to other aspects of the product to find that information. Now the next tab that we want to take a look at is project management. So project management within the tool, again, starts with a list screen that I can configure and customize. We have quick filters at the top that are going to adjust and quickly filter out the listing. And we have individual filters above those to look for specific programs, project names, etc. Now this drill down continues to exist here, and I can click the name of a project and then immediately take in the summary screen, allowing me to see the specific trending that we were seeing for clients. But now I'm only looking at this on a per project basis. Okay. Here's the high-level information Armando referred to in his presentation, and the ability to adjust progress as well as status from a project perspective. We still have the task structure that you can set up and support work breakdown structures, very complex work breakdown structures as required. The Team tab is where we're going to see some of the biggest changes. Okay. So we still have global assignments, we still have departmental assignments, and we still have user assignments, which all of you are familiar with. However, we have a new type of assignment called placeholder. A placeholder assignment is what you would use in a situation where you don't know the user that is going to be playing the role. This role of this drop down of potential roles reflects entries that you have set up within the system. So if I indicate that I need a project manager, that's great. I can report out all the placeholders that I need, and I can identify where I have gaps in my resource pool. However, the biggest difference moving to the new product is going to be our ability to allocate resources. Right now I know that Robert and Anna and Christina are going to work on this project. What we now have the ability to do with allocations is look at that project team over a period of time, understanding specifically how many hours Anna, Christina, and Lori are going to put in on this project. We can click on any cell and understand that Anna is allocated for 10 hours over 5 days in this period. I can look at a monthly view and see a less granular representation of their time. Now, this graphical representation of their allocation is simply a month-by-month or week-by-week view. Any white space here really corresponds to availability. Robert has some time off in this project only, so we could increase his allocation of this project, or he may be allocated to other projects like these users. The gray corresponds to other projects that these users are allocated to. So if we're taking advantage of time off, we'll see the time off from this view. As a project leader, I'll understand how much time they're allocated to my projects. And the pink is also going to indicate to me if they're over allocated. So maybe I need to level that resource and take some hours away from them, depending on the project, depending on the resource. Okay. This view lets you see indefinitely into the future and understand when your resources are going to be freed up, when this project is ending, etc. This view is great from a project leader's perspective. As a project manager, I see the resources on my project. I allocate the resources on my project. I can even allocate those placeholder resources that we have. So that is just a matter of clicking the cell and indicating either a percentage or a total number of hours for that resource. Let's choose total hours and assume they're going to work 100 hours over this date range. The system automatically allocates those hours evenly over that period of time. And now we know not only do we need a placeholder, or not only do we need a project manager for this team, we know how much time of a project manager's we're going to consume for this project. So this is a great view for a project manager. However, what it's not giving us is detail about what other projects Anna's working on. I might not have access to see that, but there are users in your organization that should, and a supervisor perhaps, maybe a director for her department. The Resources tab is going to give them visibility into what every user is working on across your organization. It's also going to give you visibility into their time off. It's also going to tell you the status of the project. So we can see the light blue versus dark blue here again. That corresponds to project allocation. The light blue is projects that are tentative. Once they're in flight, it'll change to dark blue, but you have the indication here to understand that a user may be 100% allocated, but it may be to a project that has yet to start, or a tentative project. Okay. This view graphically is a great single glance view to understand who's available, who's not. We can even sort by availability if we wanted to, seeing the least available users at the top. The other options that we have with regard to this is looking at percentages or just raw hours related to each of these employees. The system is going to let you determine how you represent this data, knowing that different users will want to see different things. And again, this is specific to the user that's logged in. Okay. And this view that we're looking at, you'll notice at the top, obviously, I may want to look at specific business units. I can choose to look at those and select them from my listing. I can look at specific skill sets. Yes, the system will support the creation of skill sets within the organization. Those skill sets are then associated with users, and those help to define subsets of users that you would want to explore. If I want to understand who's available for my CRM architecture team, there they are. And I can understand when they're going to free up their time by looking in the future and seeing when I can take on new CRM projects. Okay. Again, these are all users within the system. These are not placeholders. The Placeholder Resources tab lets us see all of those placeholders that we set up. Here's that financial data reporting fixes project. Here's that placeholder I set up and allocated for those 100 hours. Now, you don't want to have to flip back and forth between the two screens trying to figure out who's entering the time. So the system makes it very easy for you to find available resources. The swap screen puts the placeholder at the top and lets you scroll through all of your employees, again, based on filters that you can elect to use, scroll through your users, finding the user we want to pick. The least available users show up at the bottom. The most available show up at the top, so that hopefully you're able to pick somebody that's able to take on 100% of the hours. The system swaps that placeholder out with the user, and they're instantly updated on the project team, and they're able to enter time towards it on their timesheet. Okay. So the whole resource functionality aspect of this version of the tool is going to give you much better insight into use of your resources, ensure everybody's being utilized correctly and not overutilized. It'll also help you to forecast your billing, forecast your costing, and see into the future, what your availability is going to be to take on new projects, what your runway looks like. One last aspect I want to touch on that's new to this version is the idea of programs. Some of you on this call may have been using project-level user-defined fields to group projects together. That's no longer required because we've added a level above projects called programs, and that's what each one of these refers to. Different programs in the system that, drilling down and opening them up, again present the summary trending view. Now, instead of looking at a certain client or instead of looking at a certain project, what we're looking at is a program, which is a grouping of projects in the system. Okay. There's also a new option here to show resources. So now you can see how many users are actually entering time towards this program, which can be invaluable to make sure that users are entering time to the correct initiatives within an organization. If you see a resource spike, there may be people working on a project that's going over from a timing perspective, a scheduling perspective, or a costing perspective. Same drill down component exists. If I want to understand what's going on in the projects, and I want to see why do we have so many resources in the start of June or the end of June, I click projects, I adjust the information to show me what I want to see on this screen, and then I can click down into the project to understand what's driving the values that I'm seeing. Again, we're constantly drilling down. You'll notice we haven't had to go to reporting yet to get a lot of data out of the system. We're able to navigate down to find it as we go through the tool. Next tab is billing. Billing represents really an administrative interface to all of the data in the system, but it spins it in a client from a billing manager's client relations perspective. Finance may even like this screen. So what we're able to do now within the system is understand client by client what is open and unbilled for each specific client. Then what we can do from a billing manager perspective is look at the unbilled time for a given client, simply click on it, and change that billing status. So when you're ready to invoice at the end of the month, you can put in an effective date, choose to indicate that this time is billed, and go through the process of marking it. It will then show up in the billed section, waiting for payment section of the time. As it moves through that process, you can update it again to indicate once it's been billed. And again, all of those statuses, although we can set them from this screen, we can also set them through web services that exist behind the product as well. So if you are doing that in an external application, we can update it through our web service so that you don't have to go in through the interface and do it here. Okay. Now again, you'll notice that billing manager has access to unapproved timesheets and expenses, and they'll be able to see and get details around them to see if they want to wait for those timesheets or expenses to bill a customer. They also have the authority to override submission of those if they need to get a client billed for month end. The payroll tab that we're looking at here is, again, Replicon recognizing for payroll administrators that they need all of the data in one place. And putting it all in one place like we're seeing here allows them to very efficiently generate the extract that they need. Here what we're looking at is all of the historical time off, and expenses in the system. And a payroll administrator may need to override. We're giving them that ability all from the payroll tab. They don't have to go through an administrative menu to get to it. Then once they're happy with the submissions, they're just going to use the export tab here to generate what I have set up is the ADP extract, producing whatever payroll file they need and exporting it to import into their payroll system. We also have full history of all these archived exports so that we can go back and look and understand what was exported previously. That history also allows Replicon to export prior period corrections on the current extract. Reporting interface is just as you would remember. What we've done is really simplified it down. The reporting that we had within the previous tool was really a decade of customer requests, and it led to a lot of inconsistencies between reports. One report would show this, one report would show different fields, and it was really didn't make a lot of sense to bring everything over. So what we've done is really streamlined what's available. We've exposed all of the same data, but what we've done is expose it in a much more efficient manner. So if I choose a resource report here, what we're going to be able to see in this example of a resource report is several pieces of data related to billing rates and the user and what their expenses are. And I can choose to move these columns around within the interface just by clicking and dragging. I can add columns by checking the checkbox and finding them very easily. So we say supervisor. There I can easily find the user's supervisor and add it to the report. And then I can group by rows or columns, same as I always have. As soon as I preview this, we'll be able to adjust filter settings, save this report for other users within the organization, share it for them, or take that data out to Excel to run some financial analysis on it if we're not seeing what we need here. Okay. Administration of the tool has also been simplified, so if we have some administrators here, what we've done is organize things so that, again, the user settings that we want to adjust for a user can be found all in one place. We don't have to go to 3 different places to adjust user-defined fields and user defaults and new user defaults within the system. You can do it all in the same screen now, and that's a common theme throughout the administration of the product. Now, we've gone through the product at a high level. I know there are going to be a lot of questions. So what I'd like to do is take this next 20 minutes and go through as many of them as possible. I can almost guarantee you we are not going to get through all of the questions. However, I will commit to working with Armando to get back to each and every one of you on any questions that you've asked, so that you can get to using this version of the tool as quickly as possible. So Armando, maybe I will kind of pass the floor over to you, and if you can just present those questions. I don't think I can bring it up.
Sounds good.
So if you can present those questions, I'll be happy to address them.
Will do. So we have a question here from Bob. His question is, with resource management, does this allow for entry of unique skill sets and expertise for each employee? I think you touched on that a little bit, but maybe you can talk a little bit more about that capability.
I did. So skill sets within the tool are going to allow us to define the skill sets here. And then what we're able to do on a user-by-user basis is associate these specific skill sets with resources. And we can have different skills and skill levels for each of them. Okay. And these skill levels will allow us to filter users out when we're looking for resources. Maybe I'm looking for resources that have experience with BI evaluation. The filters that we were seeing on the resourcing tab here let us find users with those specific skills. Okay. Next, Armando.
Yep. So people, please feel free to submit your questions. If you have any questions, put them in the Q&A panel. We do have a question here now from Amy. What if a team member is on multiple projects but is billed a different rate per project?
That's not a problem. So the system is still aware of that. So if I look at every user on a given project, and let's drill down into that reporting fixes project, you're still able to define your billing rates on a per project basis for users. So I may have one rate on the financial data reporting fixes project, and I can have a completely different rate on the on another client project that I'm working on. Okay. I should also add to that with clients, what we've done is we've set up a client rate. So if I drill down into another client, what you can now do is set up default billing rates for your clients, which is nice because as you create new projects in the system, it'll pull those default rates for them. And that way you don't have to go in and manually adjust those every time you create a new project for the client.
Great. There's a question here, Jim. Will this be included in the original seat license, or is there an I'll take that one. So for questions about that, I would strongly recommend that you reach out to your account manager. And the reason is that it does vary. Some of these things are going to be part of the product, and then some of these capabilities are going to be do require an additional cost. So I think better to just speak with the account manager at Replicon, and we'll have contact information at the end here, and they can assess your specific situation and can work with you on that. The next question here is from Donovan. Will the description field in the database remain? To what extent? How major are the database changes?
That's an interesting question, actually. The description, there are several description fields within the product, and I'll maybe ask you to expand on that a little bit. The significant database structure changes with the tool. This release of the product it has undertaken significant database changes. And I should be clear that the product that we're looking at now is available through our SaaS offering. So what we're able to do is abstract all of those database changes through our API. So the API calls won't have to require any knowledge, or web service calls won't require any knowledge of the data structures underneath. You're just going to be making calls to the web service to extract the data that you need on a regular basis. And feel free to pop a note into that Q&A with more detail. We can come back to that for sure.
Yeah, Donovan said project task client description fields. We're on premise.
Okay, those are still there. So if I go to admin, as far as those task descriptions, what are you using them for today, Donovan? Let us know.
He says we make use of these to build out our GL code.
Okay. So what we may do is take advantage of some of the code fields. There it is. There's the project description, and it's still there within the on-premise tool. That means it's still exposed through the web service.
Okay. This is a little bit of a related question with regard to upgrades. Will upgrading preserve history and, in fact, incorporate the history into the new graphical views?
It absolutely will. The important thing to understand is if we look at those new graphical views, let's look at, this is an administration. So this is exactly what that graphical view might look like. I'm glad I'm in this project. This is exactly what that graphical view might look like if we were bringing in historical data, and here's why. That graphical view is looking at actual hours. Those estimated hours that we were seeing on other graphical representations correspond to the forecasting and the allocation that we were setting up. So without that forecasting, without those resources being forecast, we don't have that estimate information. But yes, absolutely, historical information will come over, and it will represent as actuals the same way actuals are represented here if they enter it on their timesheet.
Great. And a question here from David. Can you customize the analytics or create your own?
Not yet. So there's actually a third-party product that we're using from an analytics perspective producing this. And this is the first incarnation of that tool in our product. We are satisfied with the performance and its capabilities, and are now moving it over to our professional services team to leverage it when we're creating those dashboards for customers or on behalf of customers. It's not unrealistic to think that at some point we can turn that over to the customer once we've matured our knowledge of the tool and its capabilities. Today it's just this, and it's just in the product. Professional services has access to it to leverage it for you, over the next couple of months, and then at some point in the future, hopefully we can expose that to customers.
And then the next question from Jerry is, can data from on-premise version be migrated over?
Absolutely. So all of your relevant data from your on-premise version can be migrated over into this solution. There may be a couple of exceptions, and I don't want to overspeak that. So there may be a couple of exceptions. I'm not sure there are, but just to cover our bases, you want to make sure you have that conversation with the Switch team. They are well versed in all of the gotchas bringing that data over. But we're talking about strange fields like project notes is a good example that we don't see a lot of usage in our product at all. So those types of things won't come over because they just don't exist. But I'm confident that what you're using the product for today, unless you're using something very strange, will come over into the SaaS environment.
Another question is, in the billing section, does the system interface with QuickBooks to be able to produce monthly invoices?
It still interfaces with QuickBooks. It's not done through the billing information here. It's still done through the QuickBooks integration module if you've ever used it. So there's still a client-side download that goes into Replicon and pulls data out and pushes it into QuickBooks. So we still have that capability to invoice with that tool. It's not leveraging this billing summary. This billing summary was really used to leverage other financial packages, and at some point we'll come back to modify the QuickBooks tool to take this into account. But today, it has no knowledge of this billing summary. Having said that, we can still add an element of customization to make it take advantage of something that you've done in QuickBooks and update these values accordingly. So it's technically feasible. Out of the box today, it won't interact with this, but we still have integration with QuickBooks in the form of our QuickBooks integration module.
From Sean, will this release features be for non-SaaS customers at some point? You want me to take that one, or? So
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so these capabilities are definitely available for non-SaaS. However, it's not going to be brought into the on-premise version. Our path really is to move forward with building out the technology on our cloud platform. But we, as Scott mentioned earlier, this migration is definitely possible, and we have a process in place for that.
So I just want to clarify something. You said this would definitely be available for non-SaaS, but non-SaaS and on-premise are the same. So our SaaS customers have access to this, and there's no plan at this point to push this functionality.
Correct, not to the
platform. Right.
Correct. Sorry if I sounded confused. Meaning that the ability to get to this is through the process that you define, the migration process.
You got it. That's correct.
Let's see. People have questions, please put them in. Here's one, a question from Vanessa about let's see, it was right. Yes, here it is. In my projects, can I normalize the time my employees have worked?
You can, and that's a good a good question. We've got a lot of customers that are doing that in the current product. They're doing it with very complex formula strings in our calculated columns, which are still available in today's product from a reporting perspective. However, what you're actually able to do now within the product, it's built in. Let me see if it's enabled. Normalization is actually built in to the tool. So let me take a look at my permission set here. See if I need to turn it on. Okay, we're good. Normalization is built in, so you don't have to generate these strange, complex formulas in reporting. It's just a matter of telling the system, I want to normalize Scott's hours for capital expenditure, and then it will actually allow for that automatically. It'll round down their hours to a 40-hour work week or a certain number of hours per month as well. That brings a good point up, actually. I wanted to talk a little bit about it, is the CapEx, OpEx functionality. A lot of customers using this for capital expenditure tracking. And the system, previously, again, we were leveraging user-defined fields within the product to accommodate that. We've now moved on to the ability to have that built in. So all tasks within the system will actually contain CapEx and OpEx attributes so that you are able to leverage that from a reporting perspective. Actually, I'll just turn on one other thing here, and we should be able to see that normalization. Now, all of those allocations that we were making within the product are really beneficial to end users, because we can actually take that allocation. If I allocate Scott for 5 hours to a given project or to a task on that project, what we're actually doing is auto-populating timesheets now. So what you're able to do is allocate Scott for maybe 10 hours across the week on a certain project, 20 hours on another project, and have my timesheet automatically populate with those allocations if you want to. It makes it very easy for users to come into the system and just click submit on their timesheet. You don't even have to do any data entry anymore. Here's the normalization rules we were referring to built into the system. This one has been set up and defined to normalize per month as opposed to per week, and you can normalize all hours or first your CapEx hours as defined within the system.
Okay. Great. Are there any other questions? If you have any questions, can you, here's a question from David, can you import requirements from Microsoft Project Server?
We can. Actually, we've redesigned the Microsoft Project interface, and it is almost ready for release. The Microsoft Project interface today has an external module that lets you connect to both, and it presents mapping options. What we've done is we've simplified that. So what we've presented is a mapping exercise where you define one time the mapping that you want to use to bring over that work breakdown structure and maybe the resources and their allocations to those tasks. You define all that mapping. That's step one. Then you decide which system is the master. So you go through all of those fields that you're mapping, task, resource, project name, project leader, etc., and you define which one is the master, Replicon or Microsoft Project Server, Replicon, Microsoft Project Server. Once you've gone through that exercise, we put an actual link inside of Microsoft Project that you click. It is simply a synchronization. So as a project is opened inside of Microsoft Project Professional, there is a button to actually click to actually synchronize the project you currently have open with Replicon. And again, it takes into account the mappings and the master relationship to ensure that both tools represent the same data, either when you enter Microsoft Project or when you leave. Okay. So look for that in the next 3 or 4 months.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thanks everyone for your time here and for joining us today on this presentation. Where we hopefully gave you some really insightful, good information. We hope that that you reach out to us, and I have the contact information here if you want to give me back. present it right here quickly.
There you go.
Yep. Please, if you want to learn more, you can get even more tailored demo, address specific questions about Gen 3. You can contact your account manager or email sales@replicon.com if you're unsure who that person is, and we're happy to get back to you. For some reason, we weren't able to address one of your questions here today. We'll definitely loop back and be able to contact you to address those specifically as well. So, Scott, thank you for a fantastic demo. I think it was really, really great.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.